What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Spill the Tea. Today, I kind of wanted to talk about something that a lot of people may have trouble trying to explain clearly, and that is what it feels like when you are no longer living in survival mode, but your body still reacts like you are. Because healing doesn't mean that again the patterns disappear. It means you finally learn how to notice them without letting them run your life. And I want to walk you through in a real time experience that I actually had today. A nice little example that I'll use, and it's not because it's dramatic. It's just because it was something that was happened, and I figured I would just use that to build the premise off of. So let's explain survival mode. When you live in survival mode long enough, your nervous system only learns one thing, that you need to move fast. You need to make decisions incredibly quickly and decide fast. And you also get this sense of you don't want to miss the window. You don't want to miss out or lose opportunities that may come your way. And so everything inside of you starts to feel incredibly urgent. Everything feels like you're being tested. Like you're being tested, like, make this decision or it's now or never. And that wiring doesn't shut off just because, your life gets a little easier or a little safer, or you start to feel more comfort inside of you. It still resides inside of you. And so there's a lot of lies that people believe about, this healing aspect. People will tell themselves that once I heal, maybe I won't feel anxious anymore. Once I heal, I won't have as much doubt anymore. Or once I heal, my body will always feel calm. And that is not how it works at all. I can tell you that from experience. That's right, gotta have the tea. Healing doesn't erase those signals. Healing gives you a space between the signal and the response, that little pause that I talk about. That little space that you give yourself. Today I was prepping through a meeting. It was actually a meeting that was at 2 o'clock today, and it was with a couple of producers to actually start putting myself on a small little TV show. And it was a small little opportunity for myself. So nothing bad was happening, no one was yelling, no one is threatening anything. But I can tell you that my body noticed something incredibly subtle that I wasn't fully aware of at the time. There was languages inside the things that I was reading where it said, it had mentioned that things move fast, that I needed to be ready to decide, and that I needed to have all the decision makers present. Again, me, running my own YouTube and my own companies and everything, I'm the only decision maker. But had there been any other people that were involved in this company, then, they would have all needed to be there. So the old survival mode pattern that, would have lived inside of me, would have done two things. It would have went to reaction mode. Either, I would have started to panic internally. I would have felt rushed to make that decision. The level of comfort that I had now would have been overridden, and then I would have started to feel incredibly discomfortable. And said yes way too fast before, trying to outweigh the options or think about it. And I would have just dealt with the consequences later in life. Or the second thing would have avoidance. I would have canceled this meeting. I would have just disengaged with it entirely. I would have convinced myself that maybe this isn't for me. Maybe it's not the right time. Maybe I'm not good enough for this opportunity. And I would have completely shut that door altogether. And both of those options are reactions. What response looks like is what I didn't do neither of those today. I just noticed that that feeling was inside of me. And I didn't shame it. I didn't obey it. I slowed myself down. And I started to ask questions, and I gathered more information, and I told myself, I don't make financial or life decisions on that spot anymore. I'm allowed to take that time to think about it. And if anyone wants a decision right then and there, then I know that it's not for me because they're not giving me that time to produce clarity. And that's not fear, that's just learning self-trust. You're trusting yourself. A lot of the times this may feel a little confusing. You know, when you start responding instead of reacting, it feels slightly uncomfortable. You know, because you're not doing what you're used to. You're trying to teach your mind and your body in real life a new reprogramming system. And a lot of times you don't get that immediate relief. You know, you're sitting in uncertainty without collapsing, without freaking out, or without spiraling. And sometimes, you know, the people that you normally surround yourself, they don't they don't like it as much. Because, you know, when you start to learn self-regulation, you know, regulated people feel way too slow to people who feel like they need to act out of urgency. And a lot of times also, you know, your boundaries that you start to set up feel like rejection to them. People who try to pressure you. And you're creating that boundary of giving yourself that space. So, you know, there's a key distinction that, you know, survival mode says, you know, you need to decide now so you don't lose opportunities or feeling safe or anything like that. Regulation will teach you, and it'll say, you know, I'm safe enough to wait. I'm not worried about giving myself a day or a couple of hours or even 2 days before I move and make a decision. I want to outweigh my options. And that one little shift starts to change everything inside of you. Now, how you can start to identify this pattern is, you know, you can ask yourself, is there real danger, or do you just feel like there's urgency there? Do you feel like you have to urgently make this decision? Am I being asked to override my values or, you know, my timing? I'm allowed to have time, but also if it doesn't align with my values or the direction that I'm heading in life, are they asking me to do something that I'm not willing to do? And also, thirdly, ask yourself this, you know, would this still be a good decision if I waited 24 or 48 hours? What I like to ask myself is, if I don't make this decision right away, or if I do make this decision, am I still going to be moving forward in life with the direction I'm going, with or without this? And that also helps me slow myself down. Instead of jumping and making those decisions, and basically going back into those survival patterns. That's one thing that we're working on. Why those questions matter is because, you know, this is how you start to learn how to stop repeating those cycles. Not by saying no to everything and not by saying yes to everything, but by choosing your response over your reaction. That's how you start to learn how you're protecting your peace, your finances, your relationships, the life and the things that you are building and the direction that you are heading into. So I'd like to ask you guys something, and I really want to be able to answer in the comments. Where do you notice the survival mode showing up in your life? Do you tend to react fast to things, or do you shut down completely? And what would responding instead of reacting actually look like for you? If this video helped you, or at least put some sort of language to something that you were feeling but you couldn't quite explain, I hope that you guys subscribe to Spill the Tea. Not for the algorithm, but so you don't have to figure all of this stuff out alone. If you would like to keep going deeper, my book called A Child Called Home will be out for distribution next week. And that's where I unpack how these patterns form and how they shape your identity over time. And I write that through lived experience. I also created a guide called Found It at the Right Time for anyone who is in a season of slowing down, reflecting, and rebuilding your life with intention. That link is also in the description as well too. If you are a creator like me, whether it's on TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, any of that, you know, I've got something coming incredibly soon as well too. It's called Main Prompt. It's a teleprompter app designed to help you speak naturally without breaking flow. It's launching on Apple very soon. A lot of my TikToks, I actually use it. especially when I go to promote my videos or my products. It helps me stay on track. All of those links are down below. And if you're watching this quietly, just know this: learning to pause isn't a weakness. It's what safety feels like when you finally start to learn how to trust yourself.